Okay, so number 9 is 174 minus negative 24. Okay, here's one of the big things in this lesson. Anytime that you see that you have two, really this is a subtraction sign, that green thing is, right? And the red thing is really a negative sign, but we use them interchangeably a lot. If you noticed, we could say negative 4 minus 7 is the same thing as negative 4 plus negative 7. Anytime I see two negatives in a row, I need to change it to a positive. We always want to make things look as simple as we can. So before you even start working on anything like this, do this. Oh, I see two negatives in a row. One's a subtraction sign, one's a negative sign, but when you see those in a row, they become an adding sign.
74, not 175.
Oh, thanks. 174, that would become plus 24. So two negatives. When you're multiplying, don't two negatives make a positive? It's the same, the rule, it's not the same thing going on, but the rule is the same here, and here's why. If you think about it, if I'm sitting at 174, and it says minus, that means I'm going to go to the left, right? Correct, I should say. Minus means go to the left, but then that red negative sign switches the direction back to going to the right, doesn't it? So that's why that becomes positive, is if you're thinking about it on the number line and counting it off, the subtraction side said go to the left, but then when you got to the negative, it switched it back to going to the right. So this becomes, bless you, 174 plus 24, and that would be what, 198 when you add them together? On 17, there's a couple of ways to do this, but I'm going to try to explain it in the most straightforward way for this problem. And then we're going to work another one like it where you have to think differently. When I see something like this, don't I need to be thinking about PEMDAS here? The order of operations? That P stands for a grouping symbol, really. Should be GEMDAS, but it's PEMDAS is the way we say it in America. So I need to do this first. I don't want to say 132 minus 72, get that total, and then subtract 61. That wouldn't be correct. Because they group that 72 and that 61 together. In parentheses, what is 72 minus 61? 11. Okay, so I've got 132 minus 11. And so now I can make, then that's not so bad, right? That's what, 121 there? So because there were two numbers in there, I could just go ahead and do the parentheses first and then just do the other subtraction. There's a little bit of a different thing going on, though, down on number 47. So I'm going to compare this to number 47. Does anybody need a minute on this one to write anything down? Okay. When you start getting subtraction signs in front of parentheses, you got to be careful. That problem right there, oh man, there's all kinds of ways you can mess up on that. Here's what I would do. If you're thinking order of operations, you know to do the parentheses first, but you can't cram 7 minus y together and get negative 7y, right? That's just not how it works. They're not like terms. You can't squish things together like that. So maybe what I need to do, though, is I notice that I'm subtracting. I have a subtraction sign out in front of this parentheses, don't I? That's telling me they want me to subtract everything in there. But since I can't squish them together, I got to do the subtracting more than once. So here's what I got to think. I got to think 7 plus y. They're telling me to subtract the 7, and they're telling me to subtract the minus y. And then I got another minus y, right? That was like hanging out here on the end. I had to put that subtraction sign with both of those terms. There's another, I could write it down like this. I could literally say I'm subtracting a minus y.
You could just say plus.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do it. Then I'm going to show you another way to think about that. 7 plus y minus 7, and this becomes a plus y minus y. Now at this point, lots of things are going to cancel out, aren't they? The 7 and the minus 7, don't they cancel out?
Yep.
And then I'll do a different color here. How about the y and the minus y? And so what do I have left? y, and it's a positive y, and that's it, right? Another way I could have thought of this, and this, I want to go ahead and talk to you about this because 2.5, wait, this is 2 point, what, section 4. 2.6, I think, is on distributing. Another way I could have looked at that same problem is to think about, I'll put it in here in yellow. I could have thought about there being a 1 right out here in front of that 1 minus y, and I could have said negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. Negative 1 times negative y is a plus y. I don't have to think of it as subtract every single thing in there, though I could. That's one way to think about it, is subtract each item inside of there. And the other way to think about it is it's like a negative 1 times each of those things inside. You get the same result because negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. And negative 1 times negative y is a positive y. There you can see there is this relationship here between two negatives make a positive. When I multiply a negative 1 times a negative y, I get a positive y down here. So you kind of pick the way that makes most sense to your brain. You can either say subtract this, and when I write down the subtract the minus y, that becomes a plus y. That's one way to think about it. And the other way is to think about distributing. So you just pick what makes more sense to you. We are going to be doing a lot of distributing soon. Here's another way to think about it that's even easier. When you see that you're subtracting something, it's the same thing as adding a negative. So one thing I could do is this. I could say, let me just look at that minus 7 minus.
It says, just had the microphone and then crossed out.
Oh, that's okay. I was just switching over to a new page. When you have a subtraction sign in front of it, we've already seen that we could say minus 7 and then minus y is plus y. Because we see this happening over and over and over again, what a subtraction sign or a negative sign in front of a set of parentheses does is it changes the sign of everything in the parentheses. I could have said, okay, that's going to be a plus negative 7 or a minus 7, either way you want to look at it. And then a minus y would mean that negative y is going to get changed to a positive y. When you see a minus in front of parentheses, that minus sign switches the signs of everything inside of there. So you can change it to I'm adding a negative 7 and I'm adding a positive y. There's so many ways to think about this. It's easy to get all the ways kind of like this together, but so many brains just kind of function a little differently, so we all have different ways of looking at it. First parentheses didn't even need to be there, but now I got to think about how am I going to look at minus pi plus 2. How many of you like thinking about there being a 1 there and you multiplying everything by the 1? Is that anybody's like favorite way to think about it? Not so much. How about I subtract the pi and I subtract the positive 2? Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would cancel out the pi.
The pi and the minus pi would go away, wouldn't they? Yeah. So they would cancel out. Let's go ahead and get them out of the way, because if we get them out of the way, we don't have to think about them anymore. So what I have left is negative 17 minus a positive 2. Now, a lot of you probably like looking at that better. I could rewrite this as negative 17 minus 2, but those expressions mean the same thing. So how many of you like thinking of it as negative 17 minus positive 2? Anybody? Would it look better if I did this? This is also the same thing. It's the same thing as negative 17 plus a negative 2.
Yeah, which means
That looks easier for a lot of people, I bet, because now what is it?
negative 19.
Negative 19, right? So the thing about when you have a minus and a plus together, you really can switch the order of them, can't you? Didn't we just see that would work on this problem? When I get them written down, like let me circle what I'm talking about here. Right here, I could think of it that way, and it's the same thing, isn't it? I could think of it as just a subtraction sign, because remember when we define subtraction, we're just saying subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative. So lots of times you can rewrite these things into a way that maybe your brain processes it better. Maybe you like to see it a certain way and this other person likes it a different way. That's okay. You know, either way, we're going to get to the same answer.